Hello and welcome to this edition of Pop and Scott Talk Baseball. Uh Another just grind. We're in the grinding part of the season. Get to the dog days, 90-degree weather, high humidity, ball starting to jump a little bit. Starting to get into the nitty-gritty where teams need to start making moves, and some teams are, and we'll get into that. My Mets made a trade. We're starting to see little trades, nothing huge, but I think that'll be. I always feel like the more smaller little pieces get traded, the big pieces later. But again, it's so many teams in the hunt for the playoffs. The way the playoffs are done now, it's going to be interesting to see who are buyers and sellers because July's just right around the corner, Pop, and we're going to be seeing that other part of the game that's exciting to watch is the trades. You have any thoughts on that before we get into this?
I think we're still a couple of weeks away. I think it's nothing's gonna. You're gonna hear a lot of stupid rumors, but nothing's gonna happen until. I mean, you got 2 more weeks to play, so you could be a buyer today and play 13 games and lose 10, and now you're a seller. So
right.
I can't comment on that until I see what.
Yeah, because the Reds. Before we get into it, the Reds. Man, have they turned their season around in just 2 weeks, right?
If they get some pitching with those young kids they called up, all of them hitting home runs.
That division is just right to be taken, right? So
Elly De La Cruz. The World Series era started in 1903. 1903. I wasn't even born yet. People think I'm old, but I wasn't that old. Now, 1903 it started. He is the first player to have 20 hits, 5 stolen bases, and 15 home runs in his first 15 games since 1903.
He is special.
How special is this kid? And he hit for a cycle the other night.
Right. And he's raw. I mean, he is still learning the game. And I'm like, one of my buddies that breaks down players, he was comparing him to the kid out in the Diamondbacks. Corbin Carroll. I was like, Corbin Carroll is polished. This kid played his whole life baseball. I think De La Cruz, from understanding, he is still learning the game, and it's going to be scary. I mean, just with the raw talent for it. I mean, when he hits a ball, it's violent. It is He reminds me of when Harper first come up with his swings and how Harper played when he one gear, just all out. And when he went for that triple the other night, you knew when his last time up at bat, he hit that ball, and it didn't matter where it was going. He was going to third base, and he was daring them to stop him.
He wanted the cycle, so
right. And I mean, he did what he had. He split the gap, and it won't nothing they could do. They're very lucky he stopped at third because
he was in there by a mile. I mean,
right. He was motoring, and he's long-legged, and that's usually not very good for running bases because how you have to round them, you have to make your corners, and usually long striders have issues with that. But man, he doesn't. He runs those things like he's a track star, and
he looks like Usain Bolt running around the base.
Yeah, and I have not yet to see him play live, and I'm so I kind of want to see when they're playing Washington and come up so I can go to a game because I think he's that type of talent where I want to because he's going to win Rookie of the Year unless he gets hurt or.
Well, their next 3 games, I believe, are in Baltimore. They have they're playing the Orioles. The best young team in the American League is going to be playing the best young team in the National League. Of course, you call them a young team, but Arizona's real young too, and they're really good. So,
yeah,
I mean,
these young teams don't know any better, right? They're right there playing, and I still feel like the pressure's on the other team. If you're the Reds and you're playing the Braves this weekend, and the Braves get behind a little bit, they're like, uh-oh. And the Braves they're supposed to win. The Reds are not supposed to win.
Yeah.
So what
you got to, as hot as Cincinnati is, the Braves did beat them 2 out of 3 in Cincinnati. Right. So
yeah,
you got to, I believe they were playing in Cincinnati. Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
And I mean, they beat them 2 out of 3 in Cincinnati. So you got to give the Braves, that organization, a little bit of credit with the pitchers they've lost and everything. They've got some bats too. So,
that lineup is
is great. And then I think the only thing they've got to worry about in the National League East is Miami, because Miami's got 3 of the best young pitchers in the world.
And they got some sneaky talent in their lineup too. Some quiet guys that have been around and nobody's really watches because it's in Miami. So just want to touch on comments. I've been asking for comments and questions and things like that. So a couple of guys have been, we got Purple GT22, who I've met kind of in a way through the channel, through friends. The Marlins are definitely a huge surprise to me. Angels have a lot of talent. I really like Zach Neto kid. He's amazing on defense and is waking up on offense. He's still just so young too. So this is somebody that was off my radar. I need to kind of look into. I told him that. Do you know anything about Zach Neto?
I've heard good things, but I haven't seen him play.
Right.
Now, who's he with?
Let's see. The way it's
that's not. I mean, I'm just.
It is important. Let's see. This just proves how much we do not know.
We don't get. I don't have the baseball package, so I can't see all the games.
Well,
I see what's on MLB and on MASN, and then I've been, to be honest, I've been watching a lot of the College World Series because I didn't watch much of it last night because Florida scored 342 runs, so I didn't watch too much of it. I turned over to Dodgers game playing Houston.
Yeah, so right now he's batting .259, which is not terrible. 22 RBI, 5 stolen bases, 6 home runs out of 174 at bats, 24 runs scored. So for the Angels.
Okay, I think I've seen him. I just don't remember because I've seen some Angels games. If the Angels are on, I watch because I want to see Trout and Ohtani.
Yeah, and that team has those 2 guys plus Rendon, plus a couple other guys that kind of overshadow what he is doing.
And this Neto kid evidently is really doing a good job for him. So
right,
that's why they're not going to trade Ohtani. They can stop that mess. That's not going to happen.
Right now, yeah, we were talking before. Unless they do a total nosedive where it takes them out of the playoff picture, because they really want to get that team into the playoffs. Thank you, Purple. Purple also said, awesome. I always love listening to you and your dad chatting about the game. Keep up the amazing work, brother. Thank you so much, Purple. Please bring your comments. This is something how we're going to starting off the show. Ami, which is one of my greatest people in my community. Enjoyed it like always. Love to hear someone in a hobby just talk about the game and not about flipping. It's refreshing for baseball lovers. And as we know, I'm a collector as well. But this show is about the sport.
I collect wrinkles and liver spots. That's
So thank you for the comments. Please bring them on. We'll read them at the beginning of the show if they are family digestible. So we're going to do what we usually do, jump into the standings. To me, this is just the best way to cover the league, what's going on, and give our opinion, which is amount to you as much as it means, whatever it means. So we do not claim to be MLB.
We're not experts. We're just having fun.
Right. This is us, 2 guys, an old guy and a middle-aged guy, just having a conversation. That's all this is. And we want the comments to help us with the with the conversation.
Because a lot of the baseball you learned from me and your grandfather.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Granddad sitting on the couch. I just always have images of that as a little kid. So AL East. We're gonna talk about the Blue Jays in the second half of the show. They again, all the teams. One of my friends in a hobby, JD, I'm gonna yell at you. You keep telling me you're boycotting the Red Sox because they suck. They got to win a season. If they didn't do the playoff system the way they were, they would probably right now be getting into the playoffs, or at least be fighting for it. But the poor Twins are going to steal that spot from you. That's why I don't like the playoffs. You got this. You're in last place in the AL East, but you are tied with the Twins, right? Same identical record, and that's what I do not like about what's going on with the playoff system. I don't like it in football. I don't like it in baseball. It doesn't. You want to make it even, then make it even. But anyway, I know you're trying to get some of the teams that don't have a chance any other way to get in.
And they want the fans to come out to the ballpark to watch the teams like the Guardians and the Tigers and that, who are still in the running in the AL Central. They want the fans to come out for that reason, but on the other hand, you're not getting the best teams in the playoffs.
But I guarantee you the Guardians are going to be sellers here in a couple of weeks, and their season will be done. The Tigers, their season's already done. They just –
well, that's another young team they're just building.
And the White Sox just can't get it together.
The White Sox organization's in the toilet. There's something wrong with it. There's something wrong there.
I agree.
5 players this week come out and ask for a trade.
Right.
When you have that happen, I don't care what sport you're in, when you have 4 or 5 players that want to be traded, there's something wrong in the locker room. And if there's something wrong in the locker room, that means there's something wrong upstairs.
Right.
It's the Washington Commanders are a good example of that. When that moron owner bought the team went in the tank, and it's might come out in the next 2 or 3 years because he's gone. And they'll have new owners. But when you're bad up top, you're bad on the bottom because that stuff rolls downhill, and I'm not talking about mud.
Right, and then you got the Royals in the backside of that, and they just
a rebuilding team.
Yeah, they're just getting through the season. One of their top young players is hurt, first baseman. I can't pronounce his name. Starts with a P, the big fella that played on Team Italy. But back to the East, we kind of skipped through it. Nothing has changed. They're all the same. They just, the Yankees keep sliding further and further back. They're 9.5 back. The Orioles are kind of hanging in there at 4.5. And they're 5.
Now, the Yankees, I got to give the Yankees credit. With all the injuries they got and everything, they did beat the Rangers 2 out of 3.
Right.
Because the Rangers bullpen, that's when we talk about that division, we'll talk about the Rangers, and that's their Achilles heel. That's their Achilles heel.
We can go to them right now. I mean, the Rangers, they're still 5.5 on the Astros because the Astros, they made a little run, and then they're right back to they can't, get it to.
Well,
they can't get. You got to win. You're going to have to go on a run like the Reds are, where you win 7, 8 in a row.
Well, they won 12.
Right, and I know that, but I'm just saying to be reasonable, that is what you have to do, and then lose one and then make another run.
There's a problem. The problem the Astros have is this. In a lot of teams, I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see the Kansas City Chiefs have the same problem. When you get all the way to the World Series or a championship game in your league 2 years in a row, you have played extra games.
Yes.
So then there's a problem. They've lost some players. They added the guy from Chicago,
Abreu,
who's 36 years old and playing like he's 56. So he's looks like he's done. So they lost out on that deal. And it's just they look tired. Some of those guys look tired, and they're not even halfway through the season yet.
Yeah.
They don't have the pitching that they had last year because they lost 2 guys for the season. So they're down a couple of starters. For them to be where they are, I think is pretty good because, it's just they're hurting in injuries and stuff like that, and they're still playing decent ball. But that the Angels and the Rangers, if the Angels can get some pitching at the trading deadline, look out, because that line.
Yeah, because they look like they're a game out of the playoff race right now. The Angels, the Astros are as well. Astros are one of those teams like, man, if they make the playoffs, you're worried about them because they just know how to win in the playoffs.
Exactly.
The Angels, I just want them to get there. I want that team. I think player Ohtani, Trout, they deserve some limelight, and that organization needs a little bit. And maybe if that owner gets a taste of it, well, maybe, and the general manager will learn how to put a team together to do this on a regular basis. But then the Mariners, another team you scratch your head about.
That was my pick to win the American League, and they're a bust.
Right, and Athletics, which me and some of my friends were talking about the other day. I got a little teary-eyed when I saw the Oakland fans come out to do the reverse thing, whatever they were calling it, chanting that the owner sucks, and and the A's won that game, and that team deserves that city. That's a city that deserves a team. Where Tampa is a city that doesn't deserve a team, right? That is a perfect, let's take Tampa and put them in Oakland where the fans will be out to watch the games. And then take Oakland and put them in Vegas, on the moon, wherever, because that owner does not deserve to have a fan base like that. That'll put up with losing records and all this other stuff and still support the team. And then you sit there and just put this team out there this year because you want out of Oakland so bad. It makes me sick. It does. And I don't like cities and counties and states paying for stadiums. That should not happen unless they get the revenue from the stadiums. But it makes me sick. But anyway. Back to baseball. The really nothing's much changed. I mean, these teams in last month, this is their records, and I mean, I just like this time we're looking at the Central, and the Twins have a winning record. I do not.
One more thing about the Yankees, and that is that it seems that Aaron Judge's injury was worse than they thought.
Right, and now
he's saying he has a torn ligament in his toe. I don't know how many people out there I've had plantar fasciitis and a few other foot injuries in my life with all the sports and stuff I played. And I'm going to tell you, it hurts. When your feet hurt, your whole body hurts.
I've sprained a toe, and that was one of the worst injuries I've ever had.
Exactly.
I had one. I mean,
I
deal with gout, and when I have gout flare-ups in my toes, I can't walk. But that's his thing with the torn ligament. That's you use those feet and toes to a lot of torque in that lower body when you're playing baseball. And
I'm not a Yankee fan, but I hate to see him out.
You want to see the best players in the game. I want to see
the best players. I don't care what team they're on.
He's by far one of the best players in the game.
Exactly. He was the best player in the game last year.
Right. So, I mean, he's with
a nice guy. See, that's another thing, too. You root for the nice guys. I don't care what team they're on. I love Derek Jeter. I got a Derek Jeter T-shirt because I didn't root for the Yankees, but I love Derek Jeter.
Right. And I've always been a Don Mattingly fan. Can't stay in the Yankees.
Yeah.
But Donnie baseball is always I've loved Donnie baseball.
I used to love Thurman Munson.
Right. Well, there's another guy.
He got dirty. His uniform got dirty when he put it on in the locker room.
Right. And he was also one of those charitable guys and did stuff off the field. He's just a good story.
And he played during the time when they weren't very good.
He was the Yankee. So we'll switch up. Are you done? I mean,
let's get to the National League because that's where the fun is.
Yeah, the National League. This is, So the National League East. My Mets and Phillies played each other this weekend. The Mets had chances and blew them, not in the second game, but the third game. They won the first game. They held on. I thought Scherzer, the bulldog that he is, stayed in because he kind of knew he had to. And a close game, and the Mets put up a couple more runs to win that one, and the bullpen locked it down. So the Phillies, that's a team that's on a roll. As another, they play well in June. I don't know if they'll make some moves. I don't know what parts they have to move for any trades. That'll be interesting because they
caught fire last year, went all the way to the World Series, and they've got the same team basically, except they lost their first baseman.
Right, and they have Turner. Turner he's the guy that's been, him and Schwarber in June have really been playing better. But that team, I think, will go when Turner goes. When he starts really being him, I don't know what's going on with him right now, but I don't know if it's playing in Philadelphia or what. Because when Washington, that's a loosey-goosey area. That the fans are not hard on them. The media is definitely not hard on the players. They kind of got the run of what they want to do. And then LA is a little bit more laid back. Baseball's not always the forefront out there. But you go to Philly, and whatever sports are playing right now, that's the number one thing going on.
Exactly.
So if it's, not basketball or football season going on too, it's about baseball. And
and they're big on the Flyers. I mean,
Flyers. Yeah,
Philadelphia might be hard, and they booed Santa Claus.
Right.
They cheered when a Dallas receiver got hurt, which really upset me. But,
right.
I'm going to tell you, those fans are rabid. They are. They're like the fans of the Phillies, the Mets, and the Boston Red Sox are. You might be a Met fan, but most of you are nuts. I mean, y'all are so rabid, you're half crazy. I mean, that's just the way it is.
And I
got a buddy of mine that roots for the Boston Red Sox, and oh my word, I mean, he's talking about, they're the worst team ever, and I told him the same thing. They got a winning record. They'd be leading the Central Division, and then he's talking about how terrible they are. They ought to fire the manager and all that. It's just hilarious. I mean,
yeah. Well, we'll talk more about Toronto, but that's been the thing.
Yeah, and Toronto's got a really good team. I mean, they're just in the wrong division.
Right. So, what's Philly's 10 games back? That's kind of my benchmark of where you got to poop or get off the pot when you're 10 games.
They got to start. They got to make a little bit of a move here pretty soon. They can't stay 10 games back going into last month.
Right, and you're not trailing some bums. It's the Braves and the Marlins had decided, hey, we're playing too, and that's another place that the Marlins 45-34, and they're getting a little bit. I've noticed in watching, they're getting a little bit more crowd support. Winning fixes a lot of things.
Yeah, they're averaging about 28,000, which is
But the way that stadium is set up, it's like a cavern in there. If they don't have a full house, it can look mighty empty. But their fan base is getting a little bit better down there. Tampa the way the team they put out there year after year, they should have one of the best fan bases in baseball.
Exactly.
They should be rivaling the Cardinals and some of those other places. So not much going. I mean, the Mets are challenged. The Nationals might pass the Mets before
they just beat San Diego 2 out of 3 in San Diego.
Right, and that's a scrappy team. Yes, they got 30. My buddy Bobble said they probably only won 40. I hope you didn't put a bet on that. But they'll probably win 50, 55, but they're going to be. You're going to look at it and go, man, they were a scrappy team. But me and you have talked about it. They don't know how to close the second half of the games out because of their bullpen and how young they are. But, you can see the parts there. That's a team that you can see they have parts. Not like the A's. And to me, the Royals are it's hard for me to see what direction they're going into. So the Central, we got the Reds in first place. Look out.
Yeah, because the Brewers dropped a bunch of games, and
Yeah.
and the Cubs are a 500 team. I'm sorry.
They're 41-37, Dad. That's respectable. I mean, the Brewers are 40-37. I mean, the Cubs now have moved up past the Pirates. The Pirates have just
the Pirates became the Pirates.
Right. They and then the surprise is the Cardinals.
If the organization in St. Louis and in Seattle find out that I picked them to win, they'll probably come after me, because when I pick a team to win, it's usually a kiss of death.
I mean, you put weights on their pants and threw them in the deep end, because they can't get it together. And you look at that lineup, and
they have no pitching. Their pitching is awful.
Yeah, and that's weird because their pitching was pretty darn good last year.
Their number one guy can't get anybody out.
Well, they were old, starting to get old. I mean, come on, Wainwright's throwing about 45 miles an hour.
Yeah, he's throwing that in practice.
Yeah, and it's that is a big issue, but
the Reds are fun.
With the lineup, there would be
the Reds are fun. The Reds are fun.
Reds, that young team, and they're a team that has such a deep minor league system they've done built there with trades and draft. These teams the Reds are not a low bottom feeding money team, but they're not one of the high end teams either. And I think they're figuring it out how to build a team, and maybe it's a team they could keep, like the Astros, just keep adding parts and keep it rolling. And if they can figure that out, and they got, good
I call them the little red machine.
Well, the best thing I think that those young players have is one of the great veterans in the game, Votto.
Exactly.
On that,
he said he's having more fun this year than he's had in years.
Well, Votto started coming out of his shell last year. I know you're not a big social media guy, but he came on the scene on TikTok and these other things last year, and people want the MLB to promote themselves. Well, the players have kind of taken that in their hands, and Votto and some of the younger players, even if you don't like it, that's what they're doing. And, with so much going on that people can do in this world with their money, you have to kind of do that to attract people to your product. And you compete. I mean, look at all the stupid stuff they're showing. I mean, come on, they have pickleball world championships on. I saw it when I went to Texas Roadhouse the other night on the big screen in the Texas Roadhouse, and everybody's watching it like it was the World Series. I mean,
because everybody plays it now,
right? I don't. It's. I'm sitting here going, "Come on, guys." But anyway,
I'll watch ball and eat a pickle. That's as close as I'm getting to it.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there watching it going, what is the – I'm not going to get into it. I was trying to figure out what the attraction was to it. But anyway, so we get to the national – Central. Anything that to me is a boring division.
Except for the Reds.
Except for the Reds. Everybody else is just playing ball.
My two teams I'm going to root for the rest of the year to have a great run are the Reds and the Marlins. Those are the two teams.
I want to watch the Reds. That's the team that I really want to watch outside of the Mets. And, and I have the capabilities to do it. I can't, but that's another story for another day. That's one of my problems with MLB. It's something that I'll probably address on an all-season show. So more on that later. So National League West, we have the Diamondbacks are just holding strong to that first place. I watched some of it. I've been watching some of them because that's another young, talented team. I like their scrappiness of play. Sneaky good pitching, starting pitching. and they have some good parts. I don't know if they're strong enough down the stretch to hold on to it. I don't think their minor league system is deep enough. So if they get some injuries where a pitcher misses a few games because of arm stiffness or something, do they have that talent to come up to fill roles? And that's things you have to look at a team that make a championship run or a playoff run. They got to have some depth. And we know that. It's 162 games, a long season. That 26-man roster changes a lot throughout the season. So that's about one thing about them that I kind of look at.
I think the Giants are playing above expectations.
That was my next thing. Giants, they even passed the Dodgers now. I mean, that West with their rivalries, they just beat up on each other physically and on the field. You don't wear the other team's gear at the other team's stadium. It's just you just don't do that out in the West. The Giants half game past the Dodgers. Never thought I'd see the Dodgers in third place in the National League West.
Well, they lost some players and
pitcher staff.
People said they got rid of some of their salaries because they want to make a bid for Ohtani in the offseason, which might be true.
Right. Yeah.
Because Ohtani has not said it publicly, but the word is he wants to stay on the West Coast.
Closer to Japan, that Pacific Rim.
And he actually would prefer to stay with the Angels and Mike Trout because they've become close friends.
Yeah, and you have to think of it as a personal thing, Dad. You move somewhere and you make a group of friends, and that's your job. I mean, I've had this in my personal life. It's a tug on your strings to move away from them people when you can stay there and make. I mean, how much money can one spend in a lifetime? I mean, the Angels are going to offer him a boatload of money, and the Dodgers, Yankees, and Mets are going to offer him 2 boatloads of money. But how much money do you need? I mean, at what point does that happen? I could stay here and still be a very rich man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got New Balance shoe cleat commercials. He's making a ton of money. And I mean, from my understanding, you move to the East Coast. So that's like a 6.5 hour plane ride, I think now, 8 hours into the wind. Somebody was saying, and then you got a 8.5, 10 hour flight to Japan or whatever, and 12 hour, whatever it is, 16 hour. I mean, that's a long thing. But I sit there when somebody says that, I'm like, in all honesty, he probably goes back home in the off. He's not going back home during the season. So, to me, it only matters on that one flight to and from in the off season.
Right. Oh, that's true. But I mean, it's. I love to watch him play. I know that.
It's just, man. It's for me. And as much as I hate the team, if you get offered a huge contract to play in Yankee Stadium in New York, the biggest stage of baseball, that's hard to turn down. I don't care where you're from. That if you're from Japan and you're playing little and you're a little leaguer, I guarantee you when you come up to bat, you're saying you're somebody playing in a Yankee uniform. It doesn't matter where you are in this world. Your dream is to play in Yankee Stadium. So, I mean, that's, to me, you can hate them or love them. That's just the truth of the matter. I mean, what have we heard from Harper when he was a young guy? All he wanted to do was be a Yankee, Soto, these other guys. So, but back to it. Let's see, Dodgers having their troubles. Little age on their team. They got rid of some age. But they are a team that they're deep in the minor league system. They bring up.
I honestly believe they would still be in first place if they'd have kept Turner. I just my feeling.
Turner.
If he was in the lineup, hitting the way he is now with Philly, I think they'd probably be in first place. But
Trey Turner. Okay, you got Turner. 2 Turners there. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, and the old Turner's not doing bad in Boston.
Justin Turner. Well,
Justin Turner.
I was thinking Justin Turner because he's such a leadership tool. Well,
yeah, they lost a big leadership guy right there.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman isn't a vocal leader as much as does it by show. And Kershaw's kind of the same way. It's hard for a pitcher to be a leader
when he pitches every 5 days.
5 days, right?
And the thing about Freddie Freeman is, great guy. Everybody looks up to him. They love him. But let's face it, he's an Atlanta Brave hitting in a Dodger uniform.
Right.
He's always going to, when he goes into Hall of Fame, he's going to go into Hall of Fame as a Brave. That's
right.
That's his legacy.
Right. But, and I mean, that's you're and I would not be surprised if he doesn't retire in a Braves uniform.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Last year, go back to Atlanta.
Right. So
I would like to say one thing about the Pods.
We'll get so we're next team, Padres. Go ahead.
All right, they lost 2 out of 3 to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I saw 2 of the games. They have a big problem with their lineup. You would think that their lineup's fantastic, but the Texas Rangers are number 2 in baseball in losing 1-run games. They're number 2. Number 1, the Padres, losing 1-1 games. They're number 1 in both leagues, losing 1-1 games. They're 25th in offense, 25th out of all the teams. They have a .232 batting average. They have a .322 on base percentage, and they have .322 slugging. That's 25th with that lineup. Are you kidding me? So that's where their big problems are coming from. I mean, they're not scoring runs. I mean, a couple of their pitchers have come around.
Yeah, the bottom part of their order, Cronenworth, the center fielder, they're just not producing like they did the last couple of years.
Well, in the 3 games, I saw it on the internet this morning. On the 3 games they played against the Nationals, Soto and
Tatis.
The other 2 big hitters they got.
Tatis, Machado,
Tatis, Machado, Bogarts, and Soto. Those 4 guys. They went something like 8 for 44 at the plate.
Yeah.
Something like 20 strikeouts.
Yeah, and they get no hitting from their catcher. Nola. He's a great defensive backstop, but man, I think he's batting like 140 in all seriousness.
Then the manager came out today and he had it right out there when they interviewed him after the game, like they do everybody. When the media was interviewing him, he said, the game that was played today is the team that we have. And it'd be up to the team to change things. Because otherwise we're going to play like this the rest of the year because this is what we've got. Right.
And that's, like we said, 10 game is kind of my benchmark, and the closer we get that benchmark, and they're 9.5 and in another tough division. You're not playing in the Central, they're playing in the West. Your Dodgers, Giants, and Diamondbacks are what are in front of them, and they're 5.5 behind the Dodgers. They're tough road to hoe on that one. Good luck, boys. Hang with them. And then you have the Rockies, who another team that's just lost. We
never know what they're doing either.
That front office, they don't realize they play in a Homer Dome, and it doesn't matter what humidor inside of a humidor. They put the balls pop out of there.
The Angels scored 24 runs there the other night.
Right, and they just need to. I don't know. That would be one of those things I would like to. Would be fun to be fly on the wall in some of their discussions. And I mean, these teams do this because of the Astros build. It used to be Moneyball. But when the Astros kind of switched flip the script on it and do, hey, we'll tank for 4 or 5 years and get number 1, seed, the number 1 draft picks and build that way. You got to remember, not only do you get the number 1 draft pick, but you get the 31st draft pick, which is not a bad draft pick either. their first 2 draft picks, you're in the top 50 prospects, right off the giddy up.
Actually.
And I mean,
and that's the way the Astros did it. And I mean, Sports Illustrated said they actually picked the year. They put them on Sports Illustrated. This team's going to win the championship, and they actually picked the year. It was 2018 or something. They put it on the front of it.
Well, they were a year behind. The Astros did it 1 year earlier.
Yeah, 1 year earlier. Yeah, but they had the guys on there that were going to, Altuve and Bregman and all these guys.
Well, I've been saying that's the way the Orioles.
Springer.
I was like, this Orioles team reminds me of that Astros.
Exactly. Yeah.
They made noise last year. Everybody's like, oh my goodness, they're half a game out of the playoffs and playing in that division and doing that. Come on, they would have won the Central last year. And I mean, and I hate keep dogging the Central. Some of my friends that are out there that are Cleveland fans are going to probably smack me if they see me, but I'm sorry. The proof is there. You cannot not see it. But we've been babbling a lot. For a league, I said, has kind of been just held and steady. We've been boom, hitting it. But man, let's get on. We're going to talk about Toronto. To me, a team that's playing great baseball. They just in the wrong division. You said it before. They better pitching maybe. Of course, everybody can use better pitching. I just think they just going to have to find a way to win a few more games. I think they're in a playoff spot right now. I think they're half a game up on the playoff spot. And like I said, you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. You need 2 pitchers. Chris Bassett, probably not the best pitcher that they can have.
They have a decent starting rotation, but they have a monster lineup.
Yeah, that Kikuchi's been playing pretty well for them, and Barrios is Barrios. So, Dad, why don't you do what you do and jump into the history of the
this
Toronto
week? This week I did my homework on the Toronto Blue Jays. So we're going to talk about Toronto and how they started out as in 1977. They were an expansion team, and they played at the old Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. And their owners were the owners of the Labatt Brewing Company. The Labatt Blue is the largest selling beer in Canada, and those multimillionaire owners of that company bought the franchise. They opened the Sky Dome in 1989 and has been playing there ever since. Now, the thing is that during the 70s and early 80s, the team struggled. They just had a lot of problems. So, here they are. They started in the old stadium, which you just saw outside, and they had a number of games canceled because of snowstorms. It's Canada, people.
That's why I wanted to show the stadium.
It's Canada, Canada, people. And let me just jump to something else. This brings me to another little quick subject. It's Canada, so they get snow. They had the same problem in Montreal. So they're thinking about eventually putting a team in Mexico City. Well, that's Mexico. It's 3,000 degrees there in the summer. So they'd have to have a dome stadium. So if they're going to go to Mexico, they got to have a dome stadium, just like they do in Toronto. I'm just going to add that in. So in '89, they moved to the Sky Dome. In 1983, it was their first winning season. They were the 1985 division champions, lost in the playoffs. And from 1985 to 93, they won 5 division championships. They won back-to-back World Series championships and were the first team outside of the United States to win the World Series. So that they were led by one of your favorite players, Joe Carter. They had Roberto Alomar, John Olerud, Devon White. And after 93, for 21 years, they failed to make the playoffs. 21 years they failed to make the playoffs, yet they were in the top 15 in attendance. So that says something about the fans in Toronto and how much they love their baseball.
Yeah, it's surprising. I have friends in Canada, and you talk to them, and hockey is, of course, number one, not even close. But baseball, the people that are fans of baseball are fans of baseball. They love it. They can't get enough of it. It needs to be back in Montreal, but go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, and they had. They also remember. Let's remember now. Then after that, after 21 years, they made the playoffs in 2015, 2016, and 20, and they won the World Series over the Yankees that one year. What year was it when they won the World Series? 2000. I can't remember now. But they beat the Yankees, which thrilled me. I was ecstatic. 1970
to get to the World Series.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They got to the World Series. In 1979, John Mayberry was the first to hit 30 home runs for the franchise. So I
remember old John Mayberry. He used to be
the big first baseman.
Right, and how back in I just remember him being on the bottom of slushy cup. You could cut the bottom out the discs, and John Mayberry was one of the players. He was the Blue Jays representative.
Yeah, on the slushy cup. And this might be not known very well, but in 1984, their manager was Bobby Cox.
Yes.
And he was only there 1 year, and then in '85 he went to Atlanta, not as the manager, but he was the general manager.
Yes.
He was the general manager in Atlanta, and then they moved him down to the dugout to control, to take over the team because they thought he would be better with the players in the clubhouse. So Bobby Cox was with them. Some other guys that played part of their careers with him were Ricky Henderson, Fred McGriff, who I was an Atlanta Braves fan. When he came to Atlanta, boy, he saved that franchise for a few years in the 90s. Paul Molitor, Jim Morris, Phil Niekro. These guys, they played. Some of them came in the tail end of their careers, and they played for Toronto. Now, this team, Scott Rowland, Frank Thomas, and Dave Winfield also played for them at one time.
Yeah.
Now, they have a pretty good lineup. They got Bichette, they got Biggio, and they got Vlad Guerrero Jr. All three of their dads played in the major leagues.
It's pedigree, yep.
They got George Springer as a free agent from Houston. And if you have watched any of the highlights on SportsCenter or on MLB this year of catches in the outfield, George Springer's in about 5 of them. The guy can still play the outfield. He's playing right field because he's not as fast as he used to be, and because Kiermaier's in center, and he's one of the best center fielders in the game.
Yeah, that dude, he's like a gazelle right there.
He's made some fantastic catch. And they have Alejandro Kirk is their catcher. Now, he's hurt right now, but he, as I remember correctly, he made the All-Star team last year as the catcher from Toronto. The guy can hit. He usually, with all these batters on, I think he bats cleanup half the time. But he's hurt right now, so that's hurting them. Their pitchers are, they've got Gausman, and they've got Barrios, they've got Bassett, and Kikuchi. Now, their fifth starter, they just flip a coin and grab somebody out of the bullpen. They don't really have a fifth starter. But those 4 guys aren't bad. And if you look at their record, and even though people say, well, Toronto's not doing as good, because a lot of people pick Toronto to win the division, but that division's a killer.
Yes.
It's a killer. And if you put Toronto in the Central, they'd be winning. Yeah. So, I mean, you have to look at it that way, and they're still in the hunt for the playoffs. And if a team with that batting order gets into the playoffs, they can do damage. They can do damage because the starters and the bullpen for the teams they're playing better be pretty good with that lineup.
Yeah,
because they can crush it. So that was my little thing about the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, which they beat the Phillies, one of the greatest World Series ever.
Wow, that was really
with Joe Carter. I have to mention that. My buddy Mike and Ed would be upset if I didn't mention that. So that was one of the greatest World Series as a non-fan. That year I watched because it was to me just to see Toronto in the World Series was awesome. But I'm looking at
the Phillies knocked off the Braves to get in there.
That whole playoff that year was awful. That was some great baseball. And I'm looking at their Hall of Famers, and I'm a little. Cito Gaston did not get in as a manager, as a Hall of Fame manager. I guess he doesn't have enough years, but I think isn't he their winningest coach?
He's their winningest manager.
And
yeah,
I'm like,
it's a shame because the guy was.
And he just wasn't at Toronto. He's got a great coaching resume. I mean, as a bench coach, whatever. I mean, I just feel like maybe that's something missed there. And I was looking here too. It's interesting. They do have a no hitter. Old Dave Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, did against the Indians. So
yeah, I had him in my notes and I left him out.
But that's a baseball guy, right? He pitched and he was just an innings eater, but he won games. He would, win double-digit games every year. He just did his job. And I'm looking, the Hall of Famers that have played there. I mean, you left off Phil Niekro played there. So
I thought I mentioned him and Joe. Jack,
you might have, and
Jack Morris and Phil Niekro, they pitched.
The Roy Halladay with short.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bobby Cox. I have cards of him being a manager for the Toronto Blue Jays. It's kind of funny, but that is a team that, to me, has all the makings in the playoffs. Another one of those teams, they make the playoffs.
And you have to mention this. These poor guys, this team and this organization, with the pandemic and the rule, and and Canada was much stricter on the rules for the pandemic. This team had to play in Florida, Buffalo. They're playing all over the place to try to have a season, and they still had a decent season.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you have to give them credit for that.
Right. That's a very good point. Yeah, it's a team with a very short history, but a strong history.
Strong history. And if you want to watch baseball, it's kind of an exciting game. If Toronto's on, watch them. Because they can be exciting to watch. They're fun to watch. These guys come up to the plate, and
they're so deep, Dad. You left off like Matt Chapman, and to me, like Whitman, that played. He's a Royal. He's one of those guys that's sneaky. He can play several different positions and be that guy off the bench. He won a college World Series at South Carolina with Jackie Bradley, but what I'm trying to get to is a deep team, and those teams are when they get to with veterans that when they get to the if they could get to the playoffs, I say look out. All they need is two pitchers, and they can make a deep playoff.
And their bullpen, they may be trading to get some bullpen help.
That would surprise me.
They need a little help. Their bullpen's better than it was last year. That's why they didn't make the playoffs last year. But it's still not one of the better bullpens.
Yeah, I'm looking, and I mean, they have quite a bit of cast-offs from other teams in their bullpen, which usually does not bode well when you start seeing that. But yeah, this team. They also, I forgot Brandon Belt, who we watched in Richmond.
We watched in Richmond, played for the Squirrels.
Yeah, he played.
He went to San Francisco.
Yeah, so very, very deep team. Well, Dad, thank you for that. We're going really late today. Any thoughts on what's going on? And
I've only got two more comments, and then I'm done.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I've got a busy day ahead of me. First of all, the state of Florida their legislature passed a bill, and their governor signed it, and it enables the owners of the major league teams to not pay minimum wage to their minor league players. It's the only state now that won't be required to pay their minor league players a minimum wage. Now, to me, that's kind of sad. The other thing, and this is probably what's wrong with our country right now. The Physical Committee of Responsible Medicine filed a lawsuit for a team to change their name. The team is the Macon Bacon. They play in the same league as this team, the Chili Peppers here in Colonial Heights. This league is up and down the coast. Most of these teams play only the teams in their area, but they're all in the same group. They said they were promoting eating unhealthy food because bacon's not good for you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what's wrong with our country right now. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of.
Right.
Oh, don't call yourself the Austin Automobiles because you might have a car wreck.
Well, I mean, we're called the team in it's Tri-City Chili Peppers, which a kid in the center field made one of the best catches I've seen at any level yesterday. But Chili Peppers can give you heartburn and give you the runs.
I mean, I think that, to me, I wanted to close with that because that is about the dumbest thing I've ever heard of.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is.
It's what are you afraid? If I take my child or if I take my great grandchild to the Making Bacon game, oh my gosh, then she's going to go home and ask for bacon.
Right.
She's not going to talk about the baseball. She's going to go home and ask for bacon. Give me a break. I mean, please give me a break. I mean, it's just they're carrying.
And their mascot's probably a pig, and they probably do pig races.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that the team said we're not changing our name. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard of. And they're right. It's idiotic, and I had to bring that up because it's what's wrong with our country. I mean, it's just stupid.
Yeah, it's too many. Yeah, we don't. We don't want to go too deep into it. That's another channel.
It's a political thing, but to me, I had to bring that up because I had to do baseball.
Right. I got you. Well, I'm just going to close with this. Hashtag watch the games. If you're baseball at all enthusiast, it's some good talent out there. Don't let the rule changes and these are not the kids of yesteryear bull crap. There's some good talent out there, exciting baseball. Don't listen, watch to what other people are saying. So
enjoy it. Just enjoy it.
The games are a lot quicker. Me and my friends talked about it last night, a little over 2 hours. If you think you missing old school baseball where, they're back to the 1960s where the game by the same average in time, enjoy it and have it on in the background. Hashtag.
If you want to go to the long games again, watch the World Series, College World Series. They're 3.5 hours long.
Right, with 8,000 pitching changes.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to leave off with that because it was something this weekend that I've noticed in my other world, and it makes me scratch my head. So until next time, like, share, subscribe, and picking up subscribers. Please leave some comments, questions, tell us where we're stupid. I don't care. Just, be nice to leave some comments, and we'll read them on the next show if they're okay. Right. Thanks. And until next time, see ya.